Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome back once again to the channel. You know it is JJ with you on JJ's PC Builds. First time here, hit that subscribe button and hit the like button. That way you know what time it is and, If you don't, then what'll happen is YouTube won't push us out there, but I'm hoping you will because we got a lot to talk about today. Even though I'm not like everybody else that sits there and puts a members only on their videos and, the craziness of making your members pay to see your videos. I keep mine for free. But I still am trying to fight to get subscribers. I don't get it. You get free videos. I don't charge anything. Well, I'm just saying. Hello there, John Paul. Good to see you. Good to see you. We got quite a few things to talk about this evening. I figured I'd do an evening video for y'all. Live video, that is. And I want to talk about, make sure you got your drinks and snacks, by the way. Got a lot to talk about. Yeah. The thing I want to just come off the bat with really quick is that everybody's having a problem with their 50 series cards, the 5090 especially. And the reason why they're having problems with the 5090 is because of a simple thing. They're not testing the cables. So that's what we're going to talk about here. Because what I did was, for an example, I cut a cable just to show you guys, what's going on. I brought a drink into my entertainment center bedroom. Good for you, man. It's always good to have that. That way you don't have to, when I'm, explaining something out to you all, you don't have to run away so quick, and then miss out on what I just said. So that way from beginning to end, you're here with me. You'll see it from beginning to end. Okay. On the last video I made out, I was talking to you all about DeBauer and how they had a problem on his 5090 where two of the wires, what I mean by wires, okay, these wires right here, okay, now the problem is this. If I go to draw, let's say, let me grab this smaller one because this might be too big for you all. Okay, so let's just go into this very carefully. This is a Molex connector. Yes, I know y'all are going to say something about it. Yes, I know it's a Molex connector. But this right here, this is 16 gauge wire. Okay, now the problem is that the 12x2 high power, or the 6x2, the new one, the wire's 18 gauges. 18 gauge. So you say to yourself, well, Jay, how can I fix the problem if I don't know how to fix the problem? Well, you can fix the problem simply. Like, I make a test cable And I use this right here. This is what they call an ammeter or amp clamp. See? This right here is a digital amp clamp. You can get them anywhere. I mean, these are not just rated for 110 volts. You can use these for 12 volts DC as well. So, keeping that in mind, and everybody asks me, well, you know, how do I do it? What you do is you take and turn on your meter. Okay, it'll give you your rating. You know, it's hard for me to show you guys, but it's got different calculations. So if you're going to amp clamp, okay, that would probably be right about here for the amp clamp. So you turn your meter on, and then when you clamp it, you take and clamp around the wire. Everybody says, well, you can do it this way right here. No. You take and you put a loop. You put a loop in the wire like so when you do an amp clamp. Because it has to circle around and cause a field. You have to create a field around the amp clamp. This barb right here. You have to create a field. And when you create a field, it'll measure in that field the amount of amps you're pulling from that wire. Just like with your 12 volt high power. Okay. These right here, these are 16 gauge wire. This is 16 gauge. Okay. The problem is that they're using 18 gauge, and that's only rated for 7 amps. Now, there's many outlets that have tested this, and they're saying, well, you know, the GPU's only pulling 5 amps per wire. Yeah, but there could be a problem inside of the GPU itself. Okay, that is where everybody's getting the mistake about it wrong. Okay, and what I mean about wrong, I mean wrong. Each line that goes from the PCIe connector, the power connector, plugs into the GPU. Each line is supposed to be separate from each other. Supposed to be separate. Because there's different places it pulls different amounts of power. You know, it pulls different amount of power. And it's supposed to be under regulation. It's supposed to be regulated for the GPU. When it pulls the amperage, it's only supposed to pull 5 amps max. Well, if you overclock it, it can pull 5.5. But if it pulls more than 7 amps, it's going to heat that wire up like crazy, and then you're going to have a burning issue. I mean, serious burning issue. I would take and get and make me a test connector, use my amp clamp on each one of the wires to make sure that when my GPU's under a full load, that each one of the wires are pulling the same amount of amps. Okay, but if they're not, and you got one that's pulling 23 amps compared to the rest of them pulling less than 5, then yeah, That's where the burning issue comes in, and it's overheating the wire. Now, from the connection point, from the pin point, you got a pin point right here. Okay, right in the back of the connector, you have what they call a pin point. Metal to metal. The metal pin to the wire. Now, what they didn't do is they cheaped out and they didn't solder with high temp solder each one of the connections on those pins for the 12 volt high power or the 2x6. They didn't solder it with high temp solder to make a solid connection. No, they left the strands that goes from the pinpoint to the wire. They left the strands open, just crimped. So, with that happening, and those strands, they can be like a 32nd of an inch. Each one of those strands turn into a hot plate. When you start pulling too much power over the rated suggested power of that wire, it starts melting the jacket of the wire. And when it's connected in between the pin connection and the wire itself, that becomes a hot plate right here. That makes the whole pin a hot plate. Now, that's really screwed up, because if they would have used high temp solder, they wouldn't have had that hot plate right here. The wire would have became the hot plate, not the pin connection. So, most of your resistance is at the break point. And I tried to explain that to everybody. Your break point between your wire and your pin, that's a break point. Let's see. Is there a standard for the production of the 12 volt high power cables? No. Their standard, they're using 7 amp wire. 18 gauge 7 amp wire. But they tell everybody that they're using 16 gauge, but there's a difference between, if you know the difference between the OD, the outer diameter, and the ID, the inner diameter. The inner diameter has to be 16 gauge, which on those connectors for the 5090, the wire itself, the inner diameter is 18 gauge. That's only going to carry 7 amps. But if they're making the wire this long, there's going to be a dip in that wire. So it's going to heat up a lot faster. That's the reason why they give you the adapters, is because they know having the adapter with the amount of length on the adapter, that's not going to create a heating issue. But they were wrong about that. Because with the adapter, what happens is where it plugs into your PCIe connections, the adapter plugs into the PCIe connections, there's no problem there. That's not where the problem is. It's when it comes up to the break point of the actual plug for the pins, and you're combining your PCIe connectors. You know, you got what? You can draw up to what? 250 off of one leg and 250 off of another leg. Or like they do it, they do 150, then 150, that's 300. And if they got 3 legs, that's supposed to be 450 watts. But The pin connection itself is not rated for 450 watts. It's only rated for 400. And when they're pulling 6 to 700 watts off of a single 6x2, yeah, it's gonna melt. And the rated power that I've seen out of all the testing, the most I've seen it go up to was close to 700 watts on a 5090. That 12 volt, that 6x2, the 12 volt 6x2 is not going to handle that amount of draw. Especially if you're only using three connection points. That's only going to be rated up to 600 watts max. Using 3 PCIe connectors, power connectors, to that adapter, it's only going to give you the maximum of 600 watts. So if you're pulling 100 watts more than rated power because you're overclocking, then yeah. But the real problem is that it wasn't on all the wires. That's the problem. See, because that 6x2 should be pulling the equal amount of same equal amount of power. So each wire itself should only be pulling the max 7 amps, the max. But when DeBauer did his test, and he was pulling 23 amps off of one leg. That's not good. And then everybody wonders why. Everybody wonders why that they're burning up the plug connections. It's because it's overheating on one wire. Or it could be 2 wires that it's overheating. So if you're trying to pull like 40 amps, 40 to 50 amps off of 2 wires, that's not good. Especially when you take and if you multiply the 16 gauge, and if they think that 2 wires is going to give them 8 gauge, let me point this out. These 2 wires right here will not equal 8 gauge. This will not equal 8 gauge. Now, if you combined all these wires right here in one, that'll equal 8 gauge. This right here, all these wires, you'll need close to 2, 4, 6, 8 of these. 8 16 gauge wires to get it close to 8 gauge. To get that close to 8 gauge, if you twist it. And 8 gauge, you can pull 1200 watts easily. They're getting to the point where they're getting close to 1000 watts on a graphics card alone. So if you got an amp clamp like I do, I got a little baby amp clamp, but it works. I've already tested my graphics card on this to see what amperage I've been pulling on each leg, because my graphics card only uses an 8-pin connector, so it's easy for me to test. So mine's only pulling on an overclock 5.2 amps each leg. Now that's only 4 hot connections, 4 positive connections, and 4 negative connections. So if we go to do the math, which we can take you to the action screen, and let's see, we'll pull my face up here. So we'll get out the calculator. I know you guys love the calculator. So we'll get out the calculator. So we look at it this way. We know we got 12 volts. We know we got 12 volts, and we times that. We can times that by, no, I'll take the total amount of wattage I pulled, 208 watts, and divide that by 12, gives me that much, supposedly. But I'm not pulling that much. So, unless I did the math wrong, I probably did the math wrong. Yeah, so I got to take 208 and divide that by 4 wires. Gives me 52 watts per wire. So we divide that by 12. Gives me 4.3 amps per wire. That's within reason. That's within reason for my graphics card. Knowing I'm only going to be pulling 5.2, so it's 5.2 amps is not bad. So, how did they make such a noob mistake, or did the vendor cheap out? I'm going to tell you, they cheaped out. It's not a mistake. They cheaped out. Or it could be a mistake too, or it could be both. But what I think it is that when they built the graphics card, I think the mistake they made is on the shunts, not the shunt resistors, the shunt transistors, because you have to have a power. It has to be something on the power regulators. Okay, where if you got a problem with one regulator, one power regulator, that could be it too. Could be drawing too much power from one regulator, because you're supposed to have 6 regulators, not unless they cheaped out on that too and just went direct and did a combination and see, you got a combiner and a divider. Okay, now the combiner, if they're taking and pulling the power from one combiner instead of using a regulator, then yeah, the mistake is that the GPU is going to find the power that's closest to ground. So it's going to draw the most amps off the shortest run towards ground. So basically, the shunt resistor that's the closest to ground, which it's the hot section, but it's closest to ground, it's going to draw the most amps off of. So that's pretty much what happened, is that the runs are not equal length, going from the VRMs all the way back and connecting into the combiner, which the combiner is supposed to be split out amongst 6 legs, and it gets confusing a little bit. But what happened is when they built the graphics card, they cheaped out on the graphics card too. Less components. So I think, and this is just my thought, that they cheaped out on the components of the graphics card that they're selling to everybody for $2,000. No, for $2,300, and so on. That the board, if you notice, the board is half the size of the 40 series, cut in half and stuck in the middle of the heatsink. It's kind of obvious that they cheaped out on their parts and gave everybody the boost on the software. Now, I just got done uploading the new driver software that NVIDIA just put out today. I just got done. And guess what happened to me? I got black screened. Yes, I'm still here, believe it or not, but I got black screened on their software. And I freaked the hell out over this. So I had to do a hard restart, praying to God that it didn't smoke my GPU. Prayed to God. So I did the hard restart, and I was lucky I got my GPU back. So $1 more of copper would have worked. No? Believe it or not, yeah, it would have worked, but the problem is this, that the VRMs that they're using are 60 amps. Okay, 60 amps is going to be close to 580 watts at 12 volts. So let's see. Let's do 60 amps times 12. No, actually it's at 720 watts. So that's the headroom they got using 60 amp VRMs, voltage regulating modules. That helps regulate the voltage to your GPU die, your VRAM and stuff like that. So if they did this by the calculation I'm thinking that I see, for 720 watts off 60 amp VRMs. Wow. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's obvious. Because I think in the 4090 they used 50 amp VRMs, if I remember right. So if they used the 50 amp, which they shouldn't be using, because that's a little, 50 amps at 12 volts. That's 600 watts. With the 4090, that would bring it up to 600 watts at 50 amp VRMs. So there's something they did in their build that really it really screwed those 90 series up. So the 90 series and the 80 series are going to be screwed. I'm just going to tell you all straight up like this. 70 series, I have not yet had a problem with 70 series. I got the 4070, y'all know that, and I show that every time. But I think the 4070, the 4070 Super, and the 4070 Ti are going to be the only 3 out of the whole 40 series that I feel that's not screwed. Because the power distribution is equal. You don't hear of a 4070 burning up now, do you? Think about it. Maybe because it doesn't draw a lot of power. But remember, my 4070 has an 8-pin connector that's rated at 150 watts. But also, too, now this is another theory. That instead of the 4090 and the 5090 pulling 75 watts off of the motherboard, they could have bypassed that and put it up onto the PCIe power connector, the 6x2. They could have done that as well. So that would be another 7.5 amps to draw off of a single line. If we do the math, I mean, let's see. We got 5.5 amps, and we plus it by 7.5 amps. That's 13 amps over a 10 amp max load rated wire. So you're 3 amps over. So yeah, I can see it heating up one of the wires really bad. But it's pulling 23 amps. So that's a whole 10 amps more than the wire's rated to handle. Well, actually, no. If we do, let's see. We do the 23 amps and we minus it from 5.5. It's actually pulling 17.5 amps over the rated suggested max power consumption. So, that's not good. That is not good. So there are better ways to do it, and the least efficient ones was chosen due to cost. Yeah, pretty much. If you're looking at the price per dollar, okay? If you were to get a special built cable from your power supply to your GPU, then you might be able, special built that's can, plug in to your power supply and be ran all the way up to your GPU and plug in there. And let's say that they used 14 gauge wire, braided wire, 14 gauge braided, and they used high temp solders on each end of the pins. The one that plugs into the GPU, one that plugs into the PSU. I don't think that you would have a heating issue. I really don't. Once that wire starts heating up, that's proof right there. There's a problem. Because that wire turns into like a hot plate. And those pins get hot. Now, the GPU that DeBauer showed, that the PSU and the GPU both melted. And you see the connector from point A to point B, the wire, it already shows the hot spots right in front of everybody. It's common sense. I don't get it. I looked at it very carefully. Let me go ahead and pull up some pictures on this. let's see. We'll pull up some pictures on this. And okay. Takes me a couple minutes. You guys are going to have to be patient with me because I'm trying to find soup to nuts. I got so much things cooking in my PC. Even my PC's cooking. No, my PC's not cooking. I know how to handle my PC. So. Okay. Now we can go back to the action screen again. And I get to load my face down a little bit too. There. And we put it right there. Excuse me. And we need a big mouse cursor because you guys are going to curse me out if I don't get it. So we will get it. And we got it. Minimize that. Okay. Right here. See that right there? All good, man. All good. See this line right here? This one right here? I put an X there myself because you can see right there that's pulling way too much power. Because on their bar chart is showing 82.4 C. Now, if we were to calculate 82.4 C into Fahrenheit, then we'll get you a total. So, what I'm going to do is we're going to go from Celsius to Fahrenheit. So we'll go 82.4. That is 180.32 degrees Fahrenheit. Right here. Right here. That is hot. Because water boiling point's at 210 degrees. Now, that plastic is a soft plastic. That's soft plastic. And you know if that wire's hot, it's a hot plate. And what do you do with a hot plate? You put a pan on your hot plate. And those pins are your pans. So guess what's going to happen? It's obvious. It's right in front of everybody. The more amperage you pull off of a wire, the more it heats up. So if it's not thick enough, then you run into problems. So, then you run into, see these two wires here? This is from DeBauer's 5090 GPU. The wires. Two of the wires he was holding. It was hotter than hell. I don't even know how he held them with it being that hot. Well, this says 60.2, so this might have cooled off. He might have been doing it on idle. But from what I'm seeing, even though 60.2, that's still too hot. Hello, Dr. Blitz. Okay, well, recap. I'll do it just for you. Recap. We're talking about DeBauer and his finding on the wiring that's on his 5090 GPU. The problem is that two of the legs on his GPU, which we're getting into, two of the legs. So you got 6 legs, 6 power connections. You got 6 ground connections. And you got 4 sense pins, which only 2 of the 4 sense pins work. So I don't know why they call it a 6x2. Well, I can see why they call it a 6x2. 12 volt 6x2. But looking at here and looking here, that's only 2 wires. Everybody's blaming it on my problem is everybody was blaming it on the consumer. My problem, everybody was blaming the consumer and saying it was the consumer's fault. And you had many reviewers blaming it on the consumer and said that they're too freaking stupid to know how to plug in a connector. I'm thinking to myself, there's much more to this story. There's way much more to this story. Especially when they built the GPUs, the 4090 and the 5090, their construction to that PCB is shit. Because they didn't level out the power between all 6 of the legs, the wire. They didn't level out the power for each wire. They didn't level out the power for each wire. The sense pins have nothing to do with this. The sense pins, that's only a ground connection. The sense pin's only a ground connection. That's the only thing that tells the GPU, hey, we got connection. That has nothing to do with the amount of draw that's coming from each single wire. And what happened is NVIDIA had their, the connector outsourced to a different company. And they cheaped out on it. They cheaped out on the connector. So, thinking about it, and they cheaped out on it, everybody says, oh, it was the consumer's fault, the consumer's at fault. No, they cheaped out using soft plastic instead of using hard molded plastic. Think about this. This is hard molded plastic. Guys, this is hard molded plastic. The 6x2 that's on that connector is soft molded plastic. That's one. And it's going to melt at 220, 230 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's about 100, almost 120 C, maybe. You can correct me. I'm doing the math in my head right now. So 6 pins, 2 rows, plus 4 sensor, right? Yes and no. Actually, it's 6 pins towards where the sensor connection is, and the first row of that is the hot connection, and then the second row is the ground connection. But they're not using 4 sense pins. They're using 2 sense pins. There's only 2 wires that go into the sense pins. 2 wires. That's it. There's not 4. There's 2. And the problem's not the connection. The problem is not the connection. I watched a video Jay's 2 Cents did today. He said that if anybody knows anything about what's going on, then blah, 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 let him know. Well, he can watch my video and find out. Because I'm going to tell you like this. The problem's inside of the GPU itself. They targeted the power too much on one leg of the power wire for the GPU's connectors. So, they targeted 2 pins out of the 6. Instead of balancing the power through all 6 of them. Because if they did that, 9 out of 10 chances what would happen was that the whole connector would have caught flame. You're only drawing 7, you only can draw a max of 7 amps per wire, which gives you 42 amps total, which is only 420 watts on an average. You're not supposed to pull over 400, I say 400 watts on that connector. That's 6x2. And I don't care how much they machine and they do whatever, blah, 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 whatever. That connector will not handle over 400 watts. Well, it might maximum handle 520. So, they didn't balance, and yeah, John Paul, they did not balance the amperage across the six positive wires. So you got 6 positive wires. They didn't balance the power on the amperage on all 6 wires. What they did is they tried to skate it a little bit on the GPU and pull it through 2 instead of 6. 2 by 6, get it? That's kind of common sense. So you want to pull through 18 gauge wire, you want to pull 23 to 25 amps per line, and you're only using 2 lines, so you're going to pull 50 amps off of 2 wires. Go to your car, take 2 of these wires, make 2 of these the hot connection, and then take 2 more and make them a ground connection on a car amplifier. Now, pull 20 amps off of your hot leg and see what happens. This wire, if you pull more than 20 amps, actually, yeah, you pull more than 20 amps off of these 2 wires, you're going to fry it. This wire is going to melt after 20 amps. Now, if you got 4 of these wires, 4 of them pulling the same amount of amperage, like 10 amps a piece, that's 40 amps. There's a difference. See, now each wire can handle, this is 16 gauge, and it'll handle up to 10 amps. So you're going to pull 10 amps off of each one, you're pulling the max of 40 amps, which is 400 watts off of 4 16 gauge wires. Now, if you're pulling, this is how they got caught. They used 18 gauge and then screwed up on the design of the GPU, and it pulls 23 amps through one wire and pulls what do you say? Said 23 amps through one wire, and it was like 8 amps off of another wire that was side by side. That's where the confusion was about. Right there. It was done. I mean, When you said one wire was pulling 23 amps off of 18 gauge, which is only max rated at 7 amps, it's done. We already know the problem. So, we already know the problem. Especially when they said that. Let me see. Let me pull you guys up another chart. Well, it wasn't 23 amps. It was 21 amps. Okay, so here. This is what DeBauer was showing. It was 21, even 21 amps is still going to be too much. 21 amps is too much off of one single wire. One single, and on an amp clamp, 21 amps. Don't you think I've already done these tests before? Right here? It's no different than his. I always keep a multimeter on hand, temperature gauge on hand, and an amp clamp on hand. How do you think I test? I don't rely on the software all the time. So, that's the same thing he was doing right here. Anybody can do it. It's simple. It's common sense. He separated his wires. He went through each one of them and found this one to be pulling the most amps. So, and this is what happened to the connector. The single pin itself melted. Right here. Single pin itself. You can't make this shit up. I don't care how good you are. You cannot make this up right here. There's no way. I cannot make this up. This is real deal. So, I took snapshots. So, your typical strand of your 16 gauge is 19 strands. Okay? Now, if you get an 18 gauge, from 16 to 18 gauge, you're only going to get between 16 or 19. Most companies only do 16. So those three little strands make a big difference. That's why I said 14 gauge would be a lot better, because then it's 41 strands. This would be better to suit the power needs that they're pulling off of these GPUs. So, if you got 14 gauge, it's each wire's 15 amps. Amperage. 14 gauge will give you 15 amps. 16 gauge will give you 10 amps. 18 gauge will only give you 7. 20 gauge gives you 5. 22 gauge gives you 3 amps. These are the max amp draws. So, if you go to pull more power than that off of these different gauges, you'll see which one melts. And I can tell you that they're using 18 gauge because it melts. Overdraw capacity is only 5%. Overdraw capacity is only 5%. That only gives them a window of max 12 amps. So, it's crazy. Hello, RC. Good to see you. Good to see you. Pretty soon, breakers will be packed into the video cards. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Pretty much, because when you're pulling 1500 watts, which is the max rating of your wall outlet at 110 volts, which 125 volts, usually some plugs are about 125 volts, so you got a little bit of leeway. And then you got to go up to 240. In order to pull half the amount of amps, you would have to go to 240 volts. That's crazy. I'm not thinking about having a PC that's going to pull, 700 amps at 240 volts. No way. No way. You're welcome anytime, RC, anytime. I'm always popping live streams up. When I feel it's right. Tonight I felt it was right, because I hear all the boo hoo hoo and the bah ha ha from people, and when they buy these high power graphics cards, the common sense is gone. And let me explain that. When you buy a high power graphics card, number one, using the shittiest wire in the world to run it. Like, that's basically like asking NVIDIA to plug in a Molex connector right here. That's like asking NVIDIA to plug in a Molex connector to your high-powered GPU. That's stupid. That is stupid crazy. Instead of using the right gauge of wire and using high temp solder to solder the ends on the leads, no, they just give you crimp ends on the leads, which is a bad thing to do, because that's where it's going to heat even more. With solid solder connection, there's no break points. And they teach you this in electronic engineering. The more breakpoints you got, the more resistance you got on the wire. More resistance equals into less power. So you lose power with more resistance. So, 15 amp, mine's 20 amp at 115 volts. You know what mine is? Mine is 60 amps. Dedicated 60 amps at 115, 110, 115, 125, whatever. 60 amps. So, don't ask me why. It's just the way it is. Because you never know. Let's see. The other person needs to be educated for sure. They get starstruck by fancy braided cables. Yeah, I know. Going and looking at the light up cables and everything else. Yeah, I do agree with that. That are $1.30 thinking it's a deal, and poof. Pretty much, yeah. Kids and younger gen doesn't have the wisdom like we do. Yeah, pretty much. Think NVIDIA wants us to subscribe to their GeForce Cloud service eventually. Yeah. Because everybody knows that in their GeForce Cloud that you're only using half of your PC power. But that takes the fun out of it. That takes the full fun of using the full force of your PC to play a game. sooner or later, and this has been talked about, sooner or later, Microsoft Windows, is going to be cloud-based. Look what they're doing with the Office programs and everything else. They're making it all cloud-based. So by the time they do Windows 12, maybe Windows 13, your operating system is going to be cloud-based. And you're going to have to pay a monthly fee, which Microsoft is going to love. And everybody's going to be running to Linux. Simple. So. Hello, 8-Ball. Good to see you. Good to see you. I guess I'll be making my own cables. Yeah, pretty much. Welcome to the post-COVID world. Yep. Yep, I agree. So, standard 6x8 connectors would be able to manage everything better, correct? Actually, the 6x2s, no. Because it's nothing, it's the same connector, supposedly. But there's supposed to be something extra that they did to it. Maybe it still melts, as far as I've seen. As if you run a 6x2 on the 4090, it still melts. Did they solve the problem? Fuck no. They didn't solve the problem. They just made it worse by shortening the pins. That's all they did. But more common sense to the pins. Okay, so you lengthen the power pins, but you shorten the sense pins. Huh. Let me think. Did that do anything? No, it didn't do absolutely nothing. Because that's not where the problem is. The problem is the GPU is sucking too much energy from one leg. And you got 6 legs. And it's sucking energy from one leg. Too much amps from one leg. And they won't fix the GPUs. They just, when they do a batch, once they do the final batch, that's a permanent batch. They're not going to go back and fix it. They're not going to fix the problem. The problem's inside of the GPU. It's a manufacturing defect. And they don't want to tell you about it. But the single 8-pin connector, yeah, those are single 8-pin connector. I run my 4070 off of a single 8-pin connector. And that pulls 208 watts, has not melted, and I've been using it for 1 year and 10 months. A year and 10 months, and it has not melted. So that proves to me the problem is inside when it comes to the 12-volt connections, the high-power connections, or the 6x2. The problem is inside of the GPU for the high-powered GPUs. You know, the expensive ones, the ones that they didn't regulate, because with the 4070, you have a clipping point at 200 watts. Now, you can draw up to 220, but I was only able to get 208. So, but that's on an overclocked model too. Keep that in mind. So 8-pin connector times 3. Yeah, if you do the math, there, John Paul. You got 3 PCIe power connections coming into the splitter that goes into one dinky little connector. Those bigger connectors will be able to handle more power than that one dinky little connector that they got at the top. That's the problem. Now, if NVIDIA would have kept their head straight and used like 3 or 4 8-pin connectors on a GPU for the big high-powered ones, they wouldn't have this problem. Because then they would have something equal to 8-gauge wire on a positive connection. That's the whole point. That's the thing they missed. So when they figure it out and they take the dunce cap off, they figure out that they screwed up, that they used too small of wire in the first place, and in the second place they didn't use high temp solder to solder the connections from the wire to the pins. You know, they'll figure it out sooner or later. Do we know the pinout as in our any in parallel as well, doubling the amps to the wires then? Okay. Hold this thought. Now that y'all saw my big ass, whatever. See this? Now you see this. This is the 12 volt high power. This plugs in a 4090. This plugs in a 4080. This plugs in a 4070 Ti Super, 4070 Ti. A 4070 Super, and some of the 4070s that do take this connection, they will handle this too. They all take the same connector. So, the ones that are not burning up are the ones that pull less than 350 to 400 watts of power. They won't burn up. These won't burn up. Anything less than 400 watts won't burn up. See, because on the side it says PCIe. See? PCIe. This is the connector. Oh, too big. There's the sense pins on top. And the first row that's by the sense pins is the positive connection. Now below that, the next row is the negative connection. And they only used, that's it, for this. So that means this cable here is rated for 150, 300 watts. Right here. These two right here, it's rated for 300 watts. This is rated for 300 watts. And that's it. So, it's all common sense, guys. It's all common sense. I like the thermal vids people have been doing as well. Seeing which wires are cooking. Yeah, that was... I do agree with that. That was interesting. And that's the reason why I took a snapshot of a couple of them. You know, and I did tell everybody to go watch DeBauer's video, and the link is in the description in my last video. But in this video, I'll put the link in the description after it gets done. You know, the live stream, I'll put the link in the description. So, if not, you know, I'll make sure it's there. But yeah, I took a couple snapshots of it because I thought it was interesting for you guys to know where the problem is. It's not the wire. That's the build connection that they used. It's not the wire. The problem is that the amperage is not dispersed. The amperage is not dispersed inside of the GPU. Inside of the GPU is not dispersed between the 6 pins, which is here. They're not pulling the same amount of amps. That's why the first pin keeps burning. This is soft plastic. Look at this. This is soft plastic. Look at this. Look at that. Soft ass plastic. Compared to this I can't even move. That you can't even move. So, which one do you think is going to last longer? Which one do you think is going to last longer? This or this? This Molex connector here, I can tell you, I pulled close to 326 watts. And it still didn't melt. This one will. So, it's common sense. It's common sense to the fact that they cheaped out using soft plastic, printed plastic, and cheaped out. Nobody wants to get to the truth. Everybody wants to circle around like Jen Psaki circling around and have a false narrative. To me, I feel that they were pushing out misinformation at this point. So, let's see. My RTX 7900 XTX uses 3 times 8 pin connectors. God bless you. And I used 3 separate 8-pin cables directly from my PSU. That's the best way to do it. Never do the jumper thing to where it jumps from one to the next. Don't use those jumpers. Me, I don't use them at all. I would like to just cut them off. You know, put little dabs of liquid tape at the ends that I cut off, and you know, you don't see them anymore, kind of thing. Or you can take them and de-pin them and just take and, you know, cut them off on the inside and then repin it. Yeah, the pigtails. Too many piggy tails. And those right there, that's the same problem right here. That's the same problem right here. Using those pigtails is just like this. Just like this right here. Right here. It's the same thing. That's the problem. It's the same thing. Hello, MTBK. Good morning to you. Happy, joy. Got it. Got you. Yep. Yeah, it is. It's dumb, man. It's totally dumb. Need more connector on card itself. How dumb. Yeah. That's the problem, because the amount of gauged wire that they're using is too small. Guys, this is obvious. This is 2 wires right here. This one right here, this is the sense wire. Okay, well, let's do this. Jeez. Make sure I don't hit anything. Right here. If you can see that, look at the gauge. You can't tell me, looking at the gauge of wire, do you see the difference? Do you actually see the difference between 16 and 18 gauge and 16 gauge? You can see the difference. Make sure I get a good shot of it. You can see the difference. It's common sense. They're not using the same gauge wire off of the 12 volt high power. They're using 18 gauge and cheaping out instead of using 16 gauge and calling it a day. So, what a joke. No way. Yeah. So if I understand it, if you were to use 3 separate cables with each having a single 8-pin connector, you would have problems with the high-end cards, right? No. Because each one of these, you could say this would be like an 8-pin connector. Now, coming from your PSU, each one of these are rated at the max of 250 watts. I know I pulled it up to the max of 263 watts, and it got really hot at 263 watts. Just one of them. But if you got 3 of them, then you're looking at 750 watts max off of three of these connections. So three 8-pin connectors would give you a total of 750 watts, I think. That's just my opinion. I have never used those if I wasn't forced to. Yeah, that's correct, 750 watts. But knowing that the most I've ever seen the 5090 pull at was 641 watts. But I've heard reports that somebody said that they got it up to close to 700. So, and if you're pulling 700 watts and you got 3 of those 8-pin connectors, you're fine. I wouldn't sweat that. But this shit right here, this I would sweat. You're not going to pull 750 watts through this piece of shit right here. You're not going to pull 750 watts through that. There's no way. It's too small. And it bottlenecks. It's like bottlenecking your power. It, basic terms is, it's like taking like a straw and shoving a golf ball through a straw. It's not going to fit. That power is not going to sustain high loads going through one plug being pulled from 3. It's common sense. Looks like your setup is in a shack on the side of the house. Believe it or not, yeah, I wanted that look. Because later on down the road, I'll probably end up getting a studio or something like that. But yeah, I'm in a small little studio apartment, man. It's just a small little studio apartment. I got my bed on one side. I got my stuff right here. Got my closet on the other side. You know, just a small little corner. And it's basically, yeah, like a shack. Basically. So, pretty much. I don't mind. I don't mind having a small little corner in the room. So. But that's not all. That's not all that I wanted to talk about too. There are some things that I wanted to talk to you all about too. there's some other things I wanted to talk to y'all about. Let me get to it. Where'd it be? Machine, when he was awake, I guess he fell asleep. He brought up a little bit of a post. I'm going to take a screenshot of it. So that way, you know, privacy is everything when it comes to peeps. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and I'm going to build and get everything all set for y'all. So y'all just going to have to be patient. It's going to take a couple minutes to do this, which I can do in a matter of a minute or two. And let's see, canvas it up. Let's see, crop it again. Won't take me but a second. Y'all be patient with me. Done. Okay. Then we'll save it. And we'll save it right here. So we'll do this 01.png. And we'll save it there so we know where it's at. Now, let's pull it up and see what we get. Okay. There we go. Okay. Back to the action screen. Now, I want to clarify something. Yeah, we all miss Radio Shack too. Yeah, I do agree with you there. It'd have been nice, but I heard there's only one left in the United States. From what I heard, there's one left, but it's too far away from me, so I can't get there. Believe it or not, there's still an independent Radio Shack near me. Lucky you, my friend. Do you guys know why I posted this? There's been rumors about the 9070 XT coming with 32 gigabytes of VRAM. The leaks and rumors were spreading around, so Frank Azor said no. The 9070 XT card is not coming with 32 gigabytes of VRAM. So, AMD fanboys, you ain't getting 32 gigabytes of VRAM. You get 16 and you got to be happy with it. That's it. That's all you get is 16 gigs of VRAM and that's it. AMD's not going any further than that. And that's a fact. And that was a post that was right here. And you can look it up. It's on x.com, McAfee, David _ AMD, blah, blah, blah. So, just to keep you guys in the loop of that, just to let you know. So, I was bringing that up too because I know some people were saying to me, Jay, 9070 XT, 32 gigabytes of VRAM, what are we going to do? If they did that, you know that card is going to be scalped and it's going to be put on the inner boob for close to $6,000 to $9,000, and that's an advertisement AMD does not want. AMD does not want their crap being scalped. I can tell you that. If it gets scalped, it's not going to be at a high price. Because they're already talking about that, the 9070 XT being at about, what, $700? Somewhere in there? So, at one point, we had 3X Radio Shack stores. And 2X Radio Shack computer stores. Believe it or not, in the early 80s, there was a Radio Shack on every corner. Like McDonald's. Every mall you go into, you would see a Radio Shack. I always bought some good transistors from there too. When I was building power supplies and stuff like that, they had some great transistors, some good resistors, some good diodes, and solder galore, and, you know, all those little projects. And including them having on the store shelf Tandy 2000s or something like that. Tandy computers. Oh my God. That just brings back the nightmares of nightmares. Wow. Back to the days of the 386 and the 286. Yeah. Be happy you got what you got in 2025. Going back to the 286 Intel CPU processors with the crappy graphics and everything else, be happy that you got what you got today. Guarantee it. Trash 80, yep, TR80. Yeah, I know. The internet killed them. Same for Sears. Yeah, Sears was good because they had a good automotive. Believe it or not, the Sears had the die-hard battery that was 13.8 volts. That was a monster 1,000 amp battery. Knowing that if you didn't pay attention, it could melt down the car. Wow. But it was a monster battery. God, Kmart's, since the 70s. I can hear it every week. Let's go clothes shopping at Kmart. Fuck off. Kmart these nuts. Sorry. Kmart's clothes was crap. Oh, I had to get that out of my system. I've been wanting to get that out of my system since the early 70s. Oh my God. JCPenney's wasn't bad. JCPenney's wasn't bad. I'm telling you. Yeah, I had to get that out of my system. I'm like thinking, oh my God. You had to have somebody bring up Kmart out of all of it. Where'd you shop at? Oh, we shopped over at Kmart. Like, fuck off, man. Get out of here. No. Get away from me. Just keep moving. Keep moving. I'm sorry, I had to get that out of my system, guys. I really did. I didn't mean to use profanity, my bad. It savored the moment, as you would say. It savored the moment. So, y'all like my hat? I got this from Las Vegas. Y'all like my hat? Brand new. And believe it or not, I had it in the bag, sitting on the shelf. Why? I'm seeing it now. Y'all saying, why, Jay? Why? Why'd you keep it in the bag, man? Put it on. I can see it now. That's crazy. That's ludicrous. Okay, let's get back to reality. Sideshow over. Let's circle back and get back to reality. Okay, now, what I do want to talk about, believe it or not, what I do want to talk about is the big boo-boo. Here. Not a big boo-boo, but it could have been a big boo-boo. Little story I'm going to tell you. Story time. Let's go ahead and go to the action screen. Story time. Right here. Where's that? There it is. New version came out today. 572.42. Distributed today for NVIDIA. Okay, little bit of a story time about this before we continue. I was doing the updates. I was doing the updates and go Raiders. I got you. I was doing the updates for Windows. At the same time, I was doing the updates for the driver updates for NVIDIA. Just finished with the Microsoft Windows, and it's asking me to restart, so I waited, and then I installed the new drivers for NVIDIA, and when it got to the end, it black screened. It black screened. I'm not lying. It black screened. Both of my monitors were black. I'm like, oh no. Oh no, my GPU just got bricked. I was freaking out, thinking my GPU got bricked. So I was praying to God, looking at the gods up above, praying to the gods that my GPU wasn't bricked. So I did a hard restart. And lo and behold, ooh, Lordy, it came back to life. I was like, ooh, Lordy. And all I did was do a Windows update, and after that, all I did was an NVIDIA update. I have never experienced that ever on my PC. Ever since I first put it together to now, never experienced this. I was freaked out badly. I swear to God, if they put me on, mushrooms, acid, I swear to God, I would have been tripping balls badly. I would have been all over the place. I would have been running outside down the street in my underwear. Totally just gone. So I had to put a little drama in there too, come on. So, but anyway, wow, never want black screen. Yeah. It freaked me the hell out, man. I'll tell you guys what. It freaked me out. I had to use, in my knowledge and everything, every trick I had in the book, going from one step to the next. At least the first step worked out just the way I expected it to. That it recorrected the driver software. As you do a restart and do a refresh, it'll refresh the drivers and then push it back in again. I was lucky. I don't know what the hell NVIDIA is doing. I don't know. I can't say it's NVIDIA because I don't know if it was a Microsoft issue where I used both at the same time. I downloaded and installed both at the same time, and I got this symptom. But it's didn't brick my GPU, thank God. But I'll know next time not to do Microsoft update and do an NVIDIA update at the same time. I know to separate the two. So, did you do the NVIDIA update before restarting from the Windows update? No, I didn't. I should have used my head. I didn't. because I should have used my head to know that you do the Windows update first and do a fresh restart before you do your graphics card update. I did both at the same time. Figure it was going to save me time, but it freaked me out for a whole 10 minutes kind of time. Well, not 10 minutes. About maybe 15 seconds. Because I had to do a restart. A hard restart. And doing the hard restart, that actually helped. That redid the drivers and everything else. So, yeah. I was happy that it turned out this way. But I'll know next time not to do it this way because obviously there's an issue somewhere. But there's another cool thing. There's another cool thing I want to show you guys. So, I'll go back to the action screen. Okay. So, this is the deal. I went into my control panel. I went into my control panel. I went to my device manager. Right. I went into the display adapter. Right click. Go to properties. Go to driver. See this number right here, the driver version? You take, highlight the driver version, copy it, then it canceled, X out, and X out. Open up your browser, and paste. Okay. Think about this. Don't worry about what page it brought you to. Think about what popped up in the first. It's recognizing the driver for the RTX 5090. Keep this in mind. Keep this in mind. And as you scroll down, well, that's about all I'm going to get right there. But, let's see. If I put NVIDIA RTX, hit enter. Look what keeps coming up. It's reading the, oh, guys. Okay. The whole purpose of that is it's reading the software. And it looks like the software compatibility. I could be wrong about this. You guys can quote me on this if you want. But I think the software compatibility is of the 50 series. So they incorporated the 40 series with the new 50 series drivers. But put limitations on it. You know. That brings me back to the fact of, let's see. Let's go back again. Brings me back to the fact of right here. So they give us the drivers. What did they do? Let's see what they did. What I'm looking for is a correction that they might have made. Oh, transformer model. It's finally showing up. Oh. Oh. this is cool. Ooh. Look right here. The model preset, the frame generation's not, it looks like it's locked in. Super resolution. Guys. Smooth motion. Smooth motion. I'll be damned. It's off right now. They probably don't have it fully in just yet. Ooh, that is sweet. Cyberpunk's going to be a hell of a game. Cyberpunk is going to be a hell of a game. Wow. That is monumental. And I don't even have the 50 series. That is balls. I mean, guys, I want you to seriously think about this. I got a 4070 that now has 80% of the features of the 5070. Go Seahawks, yeah. So, I want you to think about that. I'll say, 80%. Then if smooth motion comes in and it comes on the 40 series, that makes it 90%. And then you get that 10% where we don't have multi-frame generation. But you know what? I don't need multi-frame generation. The frame generation that it's already got is fine. When you run it on performance, it's perfect. I'll tell you what, I've only been playing Cyberpunk for about maybe 3 days. 3 days. That's about the length of time I had it. Because my good old subscriber machine, he says, you need to have it. So he donated the Cyberpunk 2077 to the channel. So I was like, that's cool, man. I mean, that was cool. So, when we do benchmarking and stuff, we can incorporate it into the benchmarking, and when we get more GPUs, guys, and when we get more hardware, yes, we'll do more, and I'll be able to do a compilation of all what I have. But right now, I got minimal. Finances are not that great. You guys know how the world works, and so I lost interest in the 50 series. I'll stay with my 4070 until 2026. I said the same thing. I even said 2028. Believe it or not. But I can tell you this, and don't get me wrong, guys, and I know you guys are going to hate me for saying this, but the president and the vice president are doing something with artificial intelligence. To me, I'd say it's not artificial intelligence. What do you call it? Coded intelligence. CI. Coded intelligence. Because that's basically, they're just writing codes for a program, and they don't have something living and breathing that's mechanical, so I cannot call it artificial. So Hello there, Fight to Live. Good to see you. Good to see you. 1080 is still running strong for the 1080 Ti, still running strong for the 1080p. Believe it or not, yeah. Yeah. But sooner or later, you're going to want to probably go to a 20 series. But if you're going to pay the money for a 20 series, you might as well go up to a 40 series. But again, if you're going to pay the money for a 40 series, you might as well go to the 50 series. That's the way NVIDIA has it set up. But if you wait your time and the 9070 XT comes out and the benchmarks show good, then a lot of people are going to be running for the 9070 XT. That's got 16 gigabytes of VRAM. I've had my 4070 right here for 1 year and 10 months. I haven't given up on it yet. I had a 7800 XT, which I donated to my neighbor. The reason why is because I was having major driver crashes and everything else, and I made sure when I built my neighbor's computer that it was going to be solid. So right now, he doesn't have the adrenaline software, but I did leave him with the driver software. And the games he plays, he doesn't use DirectX, so he uses OpenGL. He doesn't use DirectX, he uses OpenGL. So basically, OpenGL is not gonna, you're not gonna need anything beyond the driver software. So my RX 7900 XTX is more than enough for me. For the Kong while I wait. Yeah. Hey, look, if it's rocking, don't. If it's not broke, don't fix it. Simple. If it's not broke, don't fix it. The only time it becomes broke is when Microsoft decides to upgrade to a point to where your platform becomes broke. Until then, it's not broke, don't fix it. I had a 4070 Super, sold it. A lot of people do. Some people don't like the 12 gigabytes of VRAM. Me, on the other hand, the games I play, I don't go over 9 gigabytes of VRAM. I don't balls to wall my GPU. I just like it running nice and steady, going in a pace that I go in, and I'm happy with it. So I'm not disappointed. I have an MSI 3060 on an older machine. I abused the heck out of it, that GPU, but still it works fine. Yeah. Look, if it works, don't try to fix it. Not unless you get to the point to where games, the games that you're playing or the future games are becoming too hectic for your platform, then that's the time you might want to change. But in any other time, you're not really going to want to change. What's the sense? That you're going to spend $1,500 to upgrade your platform. Me? I already have a motherboard that can handle a 5950X. That's a 16-core, 32-thread processor. And using that with the 4070, RTX 4070, that's max. That's max right there. I won't have to worry about the bottlenecking because that don't mean nothing with that 16-core processor. Straight up. Doesn't mean nothing. Even if I ran a 12-core processor, like the 5900X, it's still cheap enough. Costs way less than buying an AM5 platform. Plus, I got upgradability. I know it's not the next generation, but still, I still have upgradability from my 5700X. I use a 5700X, guys, and I live stream, and sometimes I do gaming at the same time. Do you think my system's choking? It's not. It runs peachy. I mean, compared to 1986 to now, it runs like a gem. That's how you gotta look at it. So, how do you know about all this modern PC tech stuff? That's because basically I have my phone, which I don't even know where my phone is. Oh yeah, it's over here. Usually I get daily pop-ups of all the news media and everything else. I listen, I hear, put my ear to the ground, listening every day for 7 days a week. I've been doing that for 30, 36, close to 37 years now. So yeah. I watched from back then, before even the internet even come about. Yeah. To where you're running off of CDs and you don't have the internet. The day of television, cable television, and that was it. Bored as hell. Then when the internet came about, and where you got the dial-up, you got the ding, 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 you know, that connection sound. When it dials up on a modem on your phone. Yeah. The days of dial-up. And the days of 3D worlds. Well, actually 1D worlds, but 2D worlds. But, you know, yeah. Look. I've been around the block for many years. I started my channel back 2.5 years ago, somewhere in there. Because I saw reviewers get out there and give a whole bunch of crap information to the public. One guy asked me the question in an email, how do I set up the BIOS and do a BIOS update? When you skip around making a video and cut and piece everything instead of doing the whole thing at one time and showing step by step, you're not going to gather how to do it carefully and safely. I've watched that on many of videos where people jump around and, you know, it's not showing you nothing. Step by step. All my screen captures is done directly on my PC. Anything, any kind of gaming or anything, there's no capture card. It goes from my PC to OBS to you all. There is no capture card in between. There's no separate PCs. Everything's off my main PC. Everything. So, DSL, yep. You had dial-up, DSL, then, you know, you went to the early adopter of cable, to where you had to have a phone connection, and then, you know, as it kept going. And then they made it to where you didn't need a phone connection, and you can connect directly onto the cable network. That I thought was cool. JJ learned DOS from Fred Flintstone. Yeah, pretty much. Look, back in the days when you had to do DOS, you had to learn it. Especially when you had to format a hard drive and everything else, you had to learn it. Especially from Windows Windows 3.1 or Windows 2.11, you know, or Windows 1.13. Did you all think that, Windows had a first version? 1.13. That was never put out on the market. 1.13 to 11. Those were engineer samples back then. I got my hands on the engineer samples. It's too bad that the data on the floppies went bad. Wasn't able to capture it. So, let's see. What are you guys talking about? Isn't capture card better quality since it's dedicated? No, because the capture card isn't dedicated. The capture card is a branch to another PC. So you're only capturing the video quality from 768p coming off of a capture card going into your main system, which if you're doing everything off of your main system, it's at 1080p. See, there's a difference. Everything that I do, the gaming and everything else, is done at 1080p. Not 768. Done through a capture card. Because you get crappy graphics through a capture card. When you do everything all in one on your PC, you get direct drive of graphics. This is the one mistake everybody seems to make. That if you want to, record off of your camera to your PC screen, you can do that. Then you get flickering and everything else, and I don't want the flickering. So I do everything off of one PC, which I've done for a very long time. When I play a game, it's off my main PC, which records everything, so everything comes out at 1080p. Now, if I want to push the video up to 4K, which I can, but it seems YouTube will only allow my channel, and it'll only accept 1440p because I didn't pay for a subscription. They can fuck off too, bastards. Yeah, I got a little bit of animosity towards YouTube right now because they're not pushing my videos out. They only push my videos out, and I can see it on my telephone. They only keep my videos in queue for 72 hours. That's it. 72 hours. And if you watch 50% of the video, it goes out of queue and it goes into the backwoods to where nobody sees it. And you know why that is? It's because everybody's being a dick face and sitting there saying, well, this is a video I don't want to watch. And that puts me on the shit list with YouTube. It's because they don't want to watch the video because it's not exciting enough. What do they got to do? Have sex on the video to make everybody watch? Come on. Sorry, I'm having one of my moments. And yeah, my bad. I shouldn't have been, my bad. But yeah, you guys wanted to know what's going on with me. I've been doing this close to 3 years on YouTube. And I got over 600 subscribers, yeah. Have I initiated going for the content creator stuff and everything else? No, not yet. Even YouTube sent me a message. When you going to take and, push for the, the content creating kind of thing on there, blah, blah, whatever you call it. Who cares? So, what are they going to pay me? 42 frickin' cents? That's really going to break the bank. That's really going to help me buy PC parts. Yeah, sit in the corner and watch. Yeah, no doubt. So, yeah, it's definitely memories of the good old days. But, like I said, guys, I'm over 50. I admit it. I don't care. That just means I'm through my halfway point. Just because you got somebody that's 20 years old and I'm 50 doesn't mean that, there's any difference. I'm just at my halfway point. That means I got 50 years more experience than somebody else. Or no, can't say that because you got to go from 18. So basically, 38 years or something like that? I've been working since I was 10 years old. 10 years old. I've been working. Because poverty, people don't know what poverty is like. And poverty, we lived the poverty. We lived real poverty. So, and yeah, I'm still living poverty because the U.S. government won't recognize the fact that I'm disabled. So I'm on here at YouTube trying to make videos and everything else too. That doesn't help. Does anybody care? Yeah, my viewers do. Does the government? No, they don't care. They're too busy spending billions of dollars. Well, no, they're too busy spending $50 million on rubbers over in the Taliban area. They're afraid somebody's going to get a hard on or something. What the fuck, man? Why don't you sit there and send me that $50 million so I can build up my channel and, I put the money to good use. $50 million for rubbers. God damn. This world is fucking gone nuts. Ugh. I'm 53 now. Hey, cool deal, man. Cool deal on the 53. AI will make you immortal. Yeah, it will. If it's going to stick my brain into a chip and then shove me into another body, yeah, it'll make me immortal. Poverty came hard again. Yep. I mean, look. Back in the 70s, wasn't so nice. Okay? I can tell you that because I lived the 70s. Not the 60s, but the 70s. So. And back then, that's all you had. You either go fishing or go to Kmart. Oh. I just did not say that, did I? I just did not say go fishing or go to Kmart's. I just did not say that. You can probably get a free condom. Yep. Look at the $59 billion they just shoved over into New York into that hotel. I'm not talking politics. I'm talking facts. Look at the $59 billion they just shoved into that hotel. And believe it or not, the judge told them they have to do it. Crazy. That judge should be telling, hey, give me that $59 billion. I'll take and make some happy subscribers out there. We'll be having like a giveaway every day to give back to the subscribers, the viewers, you know. So, imagine fishing with a 5090 at home. I don't think I can. I don't even think that I could ever get my hands on a 5090. Maybe in 2 years. Maybe in 2 or 3 years. When there's no demand. What if they don't have any demand? What if NVIDIA says, we're going to cut the supply and we're going to go to the next graphics card, which is the code name Rubin, is the next one that's supposed to be up. Now they name it after a frickin' sandwich. It's a cash cow grab. That's all this is a cash cow grab. So, I don't know, guys. I don't know if I want something to be named after a sandwich. I don't know if you guys feel that way, but the 60 series, having it sound like it's named after a sandwich, I don't know, man. Anytime I look at the GPU, I'll be saying, damn, I want a sandwich. That's you be saying that. Damn, I want a sandwich. Every time you look at that GPU, you're going to be wanting a sandwich. Then you're going to become a 600-pound fat fuck sitting on your chair looking for a sandwich. No, I got a GPU called a Rubin. Oh, my God. Did I just not go there? I just did go there, yeah. I mean, damn, I just went there. Is the new GPU release dates around February now every 2 years? I think that's what NVIDIA said, that they're doing a 2-year release. Hey, you ain't the only one, man. We all got our Jones right here. We all got it. I was just making a point. That's all. I was just making a point. That's all. No offense to anybody. If you're small, big, whatever, no offense. I can't say it. I'm over 300, so. But that doesn't mean I'm just tall. I'm 6'6". So 300 pounds ain't nothing. I'm more or less like, you know, the weight of Hulk Hogan or something. He was short. Oh my God. When I seen him in the late 80s in Florida, he's short. How the hell is he taller than 6'7", whatever, 6'9", whatever? That goddamn man is shorter than me. Stupid fuckers. How can he be taller than me? I was looking down to him. Let's see. The new GPU release dates around. Yeah, we talked about that. I'm worried NVIDIA ditches the PC market. Hey, it's not just NVIDIA. Look what's happening with AMD. 1 graphics card, 2 graphics card. That sounds like a Sesame Street. 1 graphics card, 2 graphics card. Breathe. Breathe. Trust me, breathe. So, yeah. I don't know. It's looking grim. For all of them. AMD, NVIDIA, and Intel. It's looking grim for them all. They're If you remember back a year ago, they were pushing graphics cards out like crazy. They were pumping them. But now, what do we got? We got absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing from NVIDIA. AMD keeps jerking us around like, keeps us on a leash like a dog, jerking us around. Come on, guys. They should have did some kind of launch in January, and then have everything, launching around the same time NVIDIA did. They didn't, because they couldn't get their prices right, and you can hear them. Oh, my prices are all wrong because NVIDIA's prices are so much better. What is the boo-hoo-hoo shit? Stop. Oh my God. This pitter-patter of little feet when it comes to the prices on the street. My God. These companies play such cat and mouse games that they're screwing with the gamers, the consumers. They're screwing with the consumers. This cat and mouse game's got to quit. I understand, keeping in competition, but you keep in competition when you launch at the same time. You build at the same time, you launch at the same time. That's competition. Who's got the best? They don't even do that now. They're all worried about what day they're going to be launching so they can do it 2 weeks later. Oh my God. The more you know, the more you burn. The more you buy, the more you save. Yeah, the more you buy, the less you save. Integrated graphics are coming to replace everything else. Yep. And when that happens, that's because of AI and the new Windows 12 platform that's going to be requiring special AI compression chips. Do you think your Tensor cores are going to actually handle the new AI Explorer that they're going to be coming out with? And it's going to be replacing what do you call it? Microsoft Edge? The new AI Explorer that's going to be replacing Microsoft Edge in the future? Oh, I wasn't supposed to tell you all. No. I wasn't supposed to tell you all what's coming in the future. I wasn't supposed to tell you all that. That slipped. My bad. That slipped. I read the tea leaves. I go back to where they were talking about Copilot plus PC and the little things that they have in store for that. Nobody else is talking about it. Nobody else is talking about it. Maybe Intel is seeing an opening to step into the PC market. Yeah, it's called your laptop market. Intel's squirming its way into the laptop market. So is AMD. And believe it or not, at the end of 2026, the reason why they're taking up the market share now on laptops is because they know NVIDIA is coming up with that new processor for a new laptop with their new GPUs. For a laptop that will host Copilot plus PC plus plus. There's something coming, and NVIDIA knows. And trust me, they haven't been hiding the information neither. They were definitely forefront with the information. They got a new laptop that's going to blow everything that's on the market out of the water. They're going to capture the laptop market. Oh, yeah, I agree with you. But I can tell you, what they got cooking, it's not going to be half-assed. I'll tell you that right now. From what I'm hearing, it's not going to be like that. But it's not going to be cheap neither. It's not going to be cheap. That laptop, you might as well look at being close to $4,000 to $5,000. Simple. Look, they even got graphics, they got 5090s right now going for, what, $100,000? I'm sure I posted on quite a few of my videos. In eBay, $100,000 for a 5090. No lie. I seen that. I took a snapshot of it and I saved it. So I got the proof. They had one that was $11,000. Probably, Dr. Blitz, it'll probably be a 5090. Probably a 5090 that they're going to shove into a laptop, from what I'm hearing. It's rumors, so take it with a grain of salt for now. It's rumors. So, just like the fact of the rumor of the 9070 XT having 32 gigabytes of VRAM, clamshelled into that GPU. No. I think it was their VP that said no. That's not true. So have a nice day with your 16 gigabytes of VRAM. Because that's all you're getting. And that's what AMD said. You're only getting 16 gigabytes of VRAM. So kiss off. That's basically the way they said it. So, don't expect any more than 16 gigabytes of GDDR6, guys, when it comes to AMD. Now, when it comes to NVIDIA, I mean, unless you're running PCIe 5.0 x16, you're not going to get the full-fledged GDDR7 from their VRAM. You're not going to get it. You're going to be getting like GDDR6, 6X and a half, basically. That's all you're going to be getting. Let's see. 8Ball says graphics card nightmares. Yep, pretty much. It is, and believe it or not, it is, and it will be a spectacular show when it all comes about. And I'm going to make sure I light it up for everybody to see how bad it's going to be. Unless it's good. And I've always said this, and if it's good, I'm going to tell you. If it's bad, I'm going to tell you. Either way, I'm going to tell you. So, 24 gigabytes on my 7900 XTX is just fine for me. Yep, and you're going to be the one that's going to be lasting quite a while too. For the simple fact is that your amount of VRAM is not going to be used up all at one shot running 24/7 like that. So basically, you don't really have anything to worry about. Especially if RDNA 4 gets implemented to the 7000 series. Which I'm hearing a rumor and leak about that too. That you guys are supposed to be getting a portion of RDNA 4 to the 7000 series. And I hope it works out to where it gets you better ray tracing, better rasterization. I don't hinder anybody from having great graphics. Doesn't matter if it's AMD, NVIDIA, Intel, or whoever. I'm a fan of the hardware. As simple as that. A fan of the company and the name, who cares? It's just a name. The hardware talks and bullshit walks. That's how I look at it. I'm not a fan of anything but the hardware. So I wanted to make sure I got that clarified with you all, that I'm not a fan of any company. I'm just a fan of the hardware. So now we know for exact that, what my side is. I just, ever since, 2016? I said to myself many a times, these companies are shit. Until they prove to me differently. And I want you guys to understand this. Until a company proves to me differently, and I mean differently, that their product is the best of the best, and I test it, and it proves to me it's the best of the best, then I'll give it a name. But until then, it doesn't have a name. It just has the name hardware. And I'm a fan of the hardware. Simple. I care. I'm a big fan. Look, I'm not rocking your boat, man. Believe it or not, 8-Ball, I'm not rocking your boat, bro. I'm just saying, from my point of view, I'm just a fan of the hardware. If it's good, I'm a fan of it. If it's bad, I'm not a fan of it. So, I don't attach companies' names to anything. Because this way, everybody knows that I'm impartial. Basically, I'm a devil's advocate when it comes to companies. Because I'm not a fan of nothing other than the hardware. That's it. I just wanted to clarify that because I know everybody's got their own personal preference. I don't rock that, and I appreciate everybody having their own preference. But I'm not the kind of guy that's going to be a fan of either or where. Just the hardware. So, someone should start a GPU company named Yeah, somebody should. Or just start a company named Hardware. You want to be a fan of the hardware? You can be a fan of the hardware. You don't have to be a fan of a company. Just because people work in a company doesn't mean that the company has an identity. In their books, it has that identity, but your GPU doesn't have that identity. It's hardware. It might have it stenciled on there, what company it comes from, but underneath the hood, it's still hardware. Get it? Underneath the hood, it's still hardware. So, angel on one shoulder, devil on the other. Yep, pretty much. Pretty much, John Paul. That's pretty much what it comes down to. Devils and angels. The good and the bad. Good cop, bad cop. That's how it works. But anyway, guys, alrighty, I spent 2 hours boring you guys to death like usual. Hopefully you guys had fun for the last couple hours. Me kind of rambling on about different little things and trying to show you a couple things, and hopefully you guys got the idea of what I'm talking about when it comes to the using a clamp meter, an amp meter, an amp meter. Hopefully you guys got the idea of how to use an amp meter. It's about the same principle as using it as you would for your house everyday household meter. At least you can have a peace of mind that your cabling is not heating up enough to catch fire, so you'll know if you're good or bad under a full load. Basically, like if you run Furmark or something like that, put it under a good load, and then you test the amperage off of each line. And that way, you'll know that your cable can handle it. If not, that's a risk you take. I've already checked mine, and I already know how much amperes mine pulls. I don't have to worry about that whatsoever. Mine holds up the specifications. Because NVIDIA does on the 4070, they put a 200 watt limiter. That's the thing they didn't put on the 5090 and the 5080. A limiter. So that way the GPU doesn't exceed the maximum rated wattage on the plug. That's the stupid mistake NVIDIA made. So now you know. Good night, 8-Ball. Good to see you here. We will have more discussions on Saturday. Not sure what time yet, but Saturday we'll get more discussions going, so you guys have to stick around for that live stream anyway. I haven't been bored one bit. That's good to hear, man. That's good to hear. No doubt about it. So, yep. And you take care as well. Peace and blessings for you as well. But anyway, guys, I hope you had fun and entertaining and everything else. And if this is your first time here, please hit the subscribe button. And also, too, hit the like button. It would help us out, and it would push out even live videos. Even though that YouTube's a butthead. But hopefully they get the point that I do have subscribers here, that they do like the video, so it's a no-brainer. But anyway, guys, until the next time and the next video, you know what it is. We'll see you on the next one. Take care, be safe, and don't do anything I wouldn't do.